Sandra. Thank you so much for coming online. I know that you are a very busy person and I won't take up too much of your time. I just want to ask you a few questions that will benefit all of our FFA members. So, first of all, introductions. Can you tell us a bit about your background and professional journey in the field of fraud prevention?
Sure. So, looking at the whole journey overall, it's been 17 years of fraud-related experience. The first 10, it's separated into two groups. The first 10 were spent operating as a fraudster, where I specialized in identity theft, check fraud, and multi-system exploits. In 2017, my daughter was born, and I decided I need to quit being an idiot and hang up the cloak and dagger. So I joined fraud prevention and tried to see where I could fit in best with my skill set. Service providers and publications picked me up for my story, so I got a lot of good actionable experience working with and talking to all the different service providers, publications, and leading the conversation by providing my insight. Then I started dispute defense, or when I started dispute defense, it was with the goal of just seeing where I can fit. And over time, it has started to take more clear shape. I have a more clear vision for what dispute defense can do and does do reliably. And currently, I work with financial institutions, marketplaces, e-commerce merchants to leverage my experience from the past in order to proactively identify vulnerabilities in systems, ultimately enhancing and refining fraud prevention strategies that are supported by automation.
Wow, that is amazing. So I'm just curious, before I move on to the next question, do you like what you do? I mean, I would think
I
so, right? But what makes you like it? Sorry. Go ahead.
I absolutely love it. There's no industry like ours. You know, when we think about like the people who work in the most intellectually challenging jobs, the ones that come to mind, of course, are like scientists and rocket scientists and all of these different things, and doctors and medical field. What I identify with our industry is that the playing field shifts. It shifts so much, so frequently, and in so many different ways that in order to be effective, you have to be really on the ball in order to see where these different functionalities come through, where these different transactions are come into play. Of course, responding to fraudsters as they seek to exploit each and every touch point. But then personally, it speaks to me because it's a bigger challenge than it was to just be a fraudster. As a fraudster, you're free to do, you know, whatever, right? And there are no limitations. There's no rules to operate within. And on this side, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the people who operate in fraud prevention, because they do have pretty reliably the short end of the stick. Data only starts when you touch down on a platform. That's where our data starts. And then we built this consortium out. So now we see that. And we get little glimpses through Telegram and WhatsApp and these social media networks. We get little glimpses into how the fraudsters operate. But based on the information that we have available to us, it's more challenging for us to operate than it is for the fraudsters to operate. And with the tremendous ground that we as an industry have covered, it's amazing. It's an amazing community to be a part of. It's thought-provoking, it's challenging. It's just a lot of fun. Yeah.
Any unforgettable like fraud situation to this day?
So I was never busted for fraud. So I guess there's two perspectives to have here. So in the world of fraud, I can't share the most. On the fraud prevention side, it was the most memorable thing for me was when I found that in speaking to professionals who have been on this side for 20, 25 years, made it their whole life goal, their whole life career and all of this stuff. And I started to have conversations with them, and I felt like the odd man out because of my background and because of my lack of experience in fraud prevention. But we started to have these conversations. We're talking about VPs of some of the leading financial institutions and founders of some of the most elaborate technologies that we have available to us. And when I was able to confidently hold my own as an agent of fraud prevention among the leaders in that space, it meant a lot to me. And I continually strive to maintain my abilities with regard to that. But no, that was a really meaningful realization that I came to, that I'm sitting here with these awesome minds, these brilliant people, and I'm accepted. Yeah. So that was a really big one for me personally.
In your experience, what are some common challenges faced in fraud prevention and how do you approach solving them? Can you maybe like highlight like a specific instance where you successfully addressed a unique or very complex like situation?
Okay, so we'll start from a high level and get granular. When it comes to the high level outlook of fraud prevention, there's one problem that I see existing just across the landscape, and it's a problem that I in my past took advantage of, and now I'm trying to address with my clients, and that is the lack of a proactive, truly holistic view of an organization. Fraudsters have it. Why don't we? Like if I were the head of fraud for an e-commerce platform, why don't I look at my own platform the same way a fraudster does? A fraudster is evaluating every touch point, every policy, every transaction, or every accepted payment method. Every time that you get to make a request to customer service, a fraudster is looking at that. Why is it so rare that organizations are at least looking at it across the board? So that'd be the first high level thing. Getting a little bit more granular, I would say that the next step would be to realize how much power you have with in-house processes and proprietary information. Every time that there's a fraud exploit identified within your system, you don't need to go run off and get new tech to solve for it, especially when you already have 2 or 3 vendors in place handling different specific things. I work with my clients. I can't share who, but I work with my clients in order to proactively put at least in-house processes and build up in-house proprietary data to proactively identify exploits that happen at each and every touch point. At least then we know when something happens and it's not 6 months down the road. So I leverage my experience to put data in place to be proactive in identifying it. And it's only at that point that we begin to move forward into assessing whether or not automation is the right choice. But we're armed with the data that we need to make an educated decision on who we hire. So anyway, that's what I think the biggest problem is, and that's how I solve for it. I guess the biggest, you said a unique experience or a complex fraud related issue. It's kind of spread all over the place, when it comes to FIs or when it comes to merchants, when it comes to anybody. To me, it's all really the same because I'm taking the fraudster mindset, looking at it for vulnerabilities, and then just putting something in place, whether it's in-house or third party, something in place. So yeah.
That's a good thing. That's a good way of looking at things. So it's like kind of like trying to stay a step ahead of the fraudster and following the fraudster's footsteps, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so you mentioned tech professional insights on that, emerging technologies. Today, if there's anything that you feel makes a significant impact in this year and age that we are in. Could also be a very old tech that is still, quite useful to
Got you.
in the present day. Yeah.
I think everybody, including myself, is very intrigued, interested, and impressed with the idea of fraud prevention orchestration, and it's already evolved out to payment orchestration. So it's extended beyond just fraud prevention, but I think orchestration is going to be fundamental when the next wave of e-commerce platforms and fintechs and financial institutions grow to the next level, like the next top 100 companies. I think that if they put orchestration in place early on, it'll be easy to grow with. And I think that it serves a lot of great purposes by being able to interact with all the partners that the orchestration platform has brought on board. You're able to play with a lot of different technologies. That one is very important. And then a second answer to that question would be, I love the idea that passive data sets are being adopted across the marketplace. It effectively takes the power away from the fraudster. So we're talking about like geolocation, IP resolution, which is different from geolocation, device fingerprinting, behavioral analytics, some biometrics. Those types of data sets are not being submitted via a form. They're a secondary data set that collects this information. And what that does, at least to me, is it takes the power out of the hands of the fraudster. if the only thing that we dedicate our verifications and our authentications on are things that a fraudster gets to type into a form, we're giving them that opportunity to deceive us, to lie to us, to submit manipulated information and such. And I think that with these data sets coming and being adopted across the marketplace, it serves to remove that power dynamic from the hands of the fraudster and allow us to be more effective at our jobs.
Next question, collaboration and community engagement. So how do you believe collaboration within our community can strengthen fraud prevention efforts?
Collaboration takes many different forms. We have consortium data that is aggregated across a merchant network. We have another version of consortium network, which is comprised of a whole bunch of data aggregation happening from different data providers, different data sources. Then we have thought leadership collaboration, and then we have closed doors collaboration, and then we have all of these different partnerships that are established across the marketplace. The term collaboration takes many different forms. And I think it's extremely important. I mean, as everybody, all the thought leaders in our space always say, the fraudsters are collaborating. Why aren't we? The fraudsters are sharing out their guidebooks on how to do this and that. And they're sharing out their tips and tricks. Why aren't we? And for the people that do share it, why aren't more people subscribing to it and trying to fold that into their operation? Collaboration is 100%. And primarily on the philosophical approach to fraud, we have the thought leadership aspect. Become aware of what's out there, become aware of what other organizations similar to ours have encountered. Moving past that, we can move over to the idea that as companies grow, we're talking about, the mid-level guys, their main goal is to expand and grow and extend their footprint and get more customers, get more clients. Well, by nature of that, we're looking into seeing a bunch of first seen accounts through collaboration, whether it's data collaboration or any one of these other partnerships. What is first seen to the merchant or the FI doesn't necessarily have to be first seen. They can subscribe to these different data sources and get access to these people's behavior or these profiles behavior, or these personas behaviors, and make an educated decision as to whether or not to allow them onto their platform. And I think that those two elements, the philosophical thought leadership collaboration and the ability to navigate the first seen boogeymen of the world, are just both very important. So collaboration, very important.
So those are your two most important, like it's on top of your collaboration list, right? So is that something that you in in your profession, is that something you do on a daily basis? You have to collaborate with everyone just to solve all these fraud situations and issues that you would encounter. Like you would say, like 100% of your day would consist of these two top types of collaboration.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have conversations with everybody from the boots on the ground, like the analysts that are working day in and day out for their transaction analysis, or they're making the determinations, in the trenches, so to speak, all the way up to the strategic managers and the directors and the CFOs of certain companies are talking about it. And all of the insight that I bring to the table isn't my own. There's plenty of insight that I learned from my fellow SMEs and my friends, and the posts and the videos, the podcasts, the webinars. And it kind of filters through me because I have established a decent sized network. But yeah, no, I would say all of those conversations are at one point along the conversation, some form of thought leadership collaboration or suggestion for data collaboration is definitely top of mind. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that insight. What advice would you offer to professionals who are relatively new to the field of fraud prevention?
Nobody knows everything. So don't feel pressured to have all of the answers. Depending on I guess if you're new, you're going to be quote unquote in the trenches, making the determinations, being being an analyst. Tell the story, see the data, translate it into a story, tell yourself the story. Does it make sense? I think that's a really good idea that I saw put forward by I believe it was my friend Brian Davis put that forward a long time ago. See the story behind the data, connect the dots, see how this transpired, and try to read what took place here. Does it make sense for this person to have a long running account that has transacted in New York, but now all of a sudden their spending has gone 3x, and it's not only 3x by volume, but it's 3x by value, and they're trying to ship items to San Francisco. Like, tell the story, right? And that'll help you identify suspicious behavior. As far as making your determinations, just try to be as accurate as possible. We need to let the good guys through and keep the bad guys out. I would say that it takes a certain spicy brain, a certain kind of mind in order to succeed in this world, because there's so much going on at any one time. Yeah, if you're passionate about it, you've got it. Run it.
Great advice. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so how about for the future of fraud prevention? Looking ahead, what do you envision for the future of fraud prevention? And how can professionals like you prepare for evolving changes?
I'll tell you that what is very scary to me today, looking forward, is the amount of compromised identity information on the marketplace, which came, of course, from data breaches, but now, of course, through mail theft. In addition to that, the abundance of checks that are available on the criminal marketplaces. If you're not familiar with it, or you want to stay up to date with it, go follow David Maimon. He's amazing. He's I think, Georgia Tech University. Go follow his profile. He'll show all of that. The reason why it scares me so much is because, of course, I see the opportunity with how much identity information is available in the marketplace, and me having specialized in identity theft in my past life, I see just how much damage can be done with a single profile, a compromised identity set. And I read a statistic the other day that the other month, it's actually a little while ago, I read a statistic that said that anybody that in the United States that has an established credit profile, their sensitive ID information is available in the criminal marketplace an average of 2 to 3 times. Everyone's information is available 2 to 3 times on the criminal marketplace. That should be terrifying. And it's only a matter of time before these low-level fraudsters start to experiment and, through trial and error, figure out how to start draining these identities, established accounts, establish new credit cards, new loans, and really go to town on these profiles. And it's just scary to see the opportunity out there. Couple that with checks. Again, checks was a focal point of my operation when I was on the other side. It is truly scary to think about what the next 18 to 24 months holds. Really, it's a ticking clock against how long it takes for fraudsters to learn how to leverage compromised identities and checks the way that I did years ago. Because that opportunity is massive. It's so massive that it should be scary for anybody.
It is the sad reality that fraudsters have been around for a long time and they're not going to stop. But this is why we need guys like you, right? So that we can keep on fighting these types of scary situations. Okay, so let's set aside the seriousness and the fraud, industry. Let's set that aside for a bit. We'd love to learn like a fun fact about you. Outside of your professional life, what are some hobbies or interests that you enjoy?
I love to cook. I love to cook.
What's your favorite
Cooking.
dish?
So my favorite dish is I did this very special filet for Christmas a little while ago. We got the whole chain, like the Chateaubriand. We got that. I did the dry aging of it. Or the dry brine. I made gravy from scratch. I made super fancy mashed potatoes. It was insane. It was so great. I did it was my first time experimenting with the reverse sear technique. For foodies, it was highly technical. I tried to go all out, but that was probably my favorite one, and it turned out great. I was very, very proud of what I accomplished there. Yeah.
Very fancy cooking skills. I should probably look that up and try to make it myself. Yes, and I interrupted you there. I know you have other interests that you mentioned earlier outside of this conversation. And, I'm sure the viewers would love to hear that. So what is your interest and hobbies? Your
Other than
hobbies?
cooking, it's spending time with my daughter. But aside from that, it's playing guitar. And I play guitar like a freak. For those of you who are fellow musicians or you play guitar, I play left-handed, but my sixth string, the thickest string, is on the bottom, and it goes 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I play upside down, and I love death metal. So it's all the technical, blah blah blah, crazy stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much me: cooking, hanging with my daughter, playing guitar. What about you? What are your passions and hobbies?
Okay, you caught me off guard on that one. Let me think for a second. Honestly, I do love hanging out with my daughter a lot. I do spend quite a bit of time with my family. They are quite important to me. So, it took me a second to figure out, like, wait a minute, what is my hobby? Basically, I love reading and learning a lot. So, spend most of my time reading. Actually, what I do. I used to have a bakery, so I bake a lot. Yeah, I like fancy cakes and everything. Yeah, unfortunately, I had to choose. I couldn't. Again, I'm interested in learning so many things that I have too many things going on, so I had to cut back. So now it's just a hobby. So,
I'm
yeah,
gonna come to you for some baking recipes because I need to move more into that realm. So we'll trade. We'll swap some recipes, okay?
sure. That sounds amazing. I'd love to cook fancy. So. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Alexander. It's so amazing to hear everything, in the world of fraud, like the fraud industry, what you do, what you're capable of teaching everyone in this profession. I hope that you reach more viewers, more people. They learn a lot from you. You are such an amazing person, and I love the advice that you have for the FFA members. Thank you so much for coming online and making time for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.